Hello, my dear students of 4th primary. How are you? Now, there are many situations in our life in which we need to do quick calculations using mental math. في مواقف كتيرة قوي بنبقى محتاج ان احنا نعمل quick calculations عشان كده بنستخدم mental math. We either need to do addition, subtraction, multiplication أو division. For example, if we need to buy 5 pens, لو محتاجة اشتري 5 pens, you will go to stationery shop. هنروح للstationery shop وهسأل about the price of 1 pen. عايز أعرف ال 1 pen بكام. طيب لو لقيت البن ب 10 pounds، البن الواحد ب 10 pounds, then you will need to quickly calculate how much these 5 pens are. هبقى محتاجة بسرعة أحسب ال 5 pens دول هشتريهم بكام. The fastest way، أسرع طريقة to do this is by using multiplication. This will be the focus، ده اللي هنركز عليه النهاردة in Unit 5 Lesson 5 Patterns of multiplying by tens. In this lesson, we will learn about the zero property and the identity property of multiplication and how to use these properties. إزاي هستخدم ال properties دي to solve the problems. We will also identify the patterns repeated when factors are multiplied by 10 or 100 and 1000. So, in Access page 213 in your school book, let's see it all together. Here in Access page 213, as you see here, we will start practicing using mental math and identifying patterns. In the first part of this activity, Access, in the first part, we will solve the problems mentally and won't write anything. محدش يكتب أي حاجة. Just solve it mentally in your minds. In the second part of the activity, you will write the definition and you will write an example for the properties in the table in your own words. Don't forget to use the words you have learned. استخدموا ال words اللي احنا درسناها like what, like factor, product, array, rows and columns. For example, you can use 5 groups of 1 وكمان 1 row of 5 or 8 groups of 0 and so on. I'll give you now time to think about how to solve these problems mentally and how to complete the table. When we are back, we can discuss your answers all together. And now I am sure that solving the problems was very easy for you, as we learned mental math before. خلاص احنا عرفنا mental math بيتعمل ازاي. Also, I am sure you have noticed the pattern repeated here, as we multiply by 1 or 0. As for the definitions, تعالوا بقى نشوف ال definitions عندنا. I am sure you all have written that any number multiplied by 1, like 12 times 1, let's write it here. Any number multiplied by 1 like 12 times 1 equals the same number. Equals the same number. Okay, any number times 1 gives me the same number. And this is what is called the identity property of multiplication. This is the definition of it. This property means that any number multiplied by 1 won't change, gives me the same number. And also, I am sure that many of you have written that any number multiplied by 0, any number multiplied by 0, like what? Like, for example, 16 times 0 equals what? Equals 0. Equals 0. And this is what is called zero property of multiplication. This is the definition of it. Now, let's have more practice on mental math and move to build page 214. Let's see page 214 all together. And this is the build part. Let's read the problem there and see what we need to do. The problem here says the metro can get people around the city how many times as fast as walking? Okay. طيب if the average person walks how many kilometers an hour, about how fast does the metro go. طيب الكويستشن here is ايه؟ الكويستشن عايز يعرف المترو جو السبيد بتاعت المترو قد ايه. طيب does this problem remind you of something we studied before؟ هي البروبلم دي فكرتكم بحاجه احنا درسناها قبل كده؟ Exactly, this problem is very similar to the multiplicative comparison problems we solved in the last lesson using كنا بنستخدم ايه؟ 2 times or 3 times and so on. We also have learned to turn this into multiplication. عرفنا ازاي هنحول ده لمultiplication. Let's fill in the blanks. تعالوا بقى let's solve it with the correct numbers to answer the question. الquestion اللي هو كان بيقول لي ايه؟ How fast does the metro go? If we say that metro travels 10 times as fast as walking. لو قلت لكم ان المترو travels 10 times as fast as walking. And the average man walks 5 kilometers an hour. والمان بيمشي 5 kilometers an hour. Then the known part الحاجة اللي أنا عارفاها هي إيه؟ Yes, إن ال average man walks 5 kilometers an hour. وكمان there are other comparison between السبيد بتاع المترو والperson. طيب دي الحاجات المعروفة بالنسبة لي. إيه الأنون؟ إيه الحاجة اللي أنا عايزة أجيبها؟ الأنون هي السبيد of the metro or how fast does the metro go. دي الحاجة الأنون اللي أنا عايزة أجيبها. طيب if we arrange our steps تعالوا نرتب كده أفكارنا to solve it. We will find that المترو travels 10 times as fast as the man. المترو travels هنلاقي إن المترو travels 10 times as fast as the man. Okay? طيب now some of you might think of different strategies. في حد منكم ممكن يفكر بطريقة تانية. You may think of using the math fact اللي هي إيه؟ طب ما أنا ممكن أعمل 10 times 5 right؟ 10 times 5 مش احنا قلنا المترو travels 10 times as fast as the man يبقى 10 times 5 and the product will be what? Yes, the answer will be 50 kilometers, right? Okay, now, thus we have solved this question about the speed of the metro. It's 50 kilometers as you see per hour. You can think of many strategies to solve this problem mentally. ممكن حد يحلها بطريقة تانية and it will be correct. Now in the second part of build, we will need to revise what we have studied about the place value of the ones, tens, hundred, and thousand on a place value chart. Can you remember it? Okay. Now I am sure you still remember that we use a tiny square for the ones like this. مش احنا كنا نرسم ال1 like tiny square؟ طيب what about the tens؟ ال10 كنا برسمه ازاي؟ Yes, it's like a rod of 10 units like this. Rod and consists of 10 units, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 consists of 10 units. طيب, and we use a large square consisting of 10 rods to represent the 100. 100 كنا بنعمله كده large square, right? What about the 1000? Yes, I can represent it by drawing a cube consisting of 10 hundreds for the 1000. تعالوا نرسمها كده. I can represent it like a cube like this. يبقى here's the ones, rod for the tens, and the 100, and the cube for the 1000. After this revision, we need to solve the problems using the place value chart. تعالوا بقى نستخدم ال place value chart to solve the problem on page 215. I'm sure you can easily solve these problems, but we also need to represent them using the place value chart. تعالوا بقى represent these numbers using the place value chart. How can this be done? تعالوا نشوف كده for example in problem number 1. We have 4 times 1, right? طيب here 4 times 1 equals what? Equals 4. Okay, to model this we will draw 4 tiny squares. تعالوا نشوف كده. like you see here. طيب let's represent بقى the ones, so I will represent it at 4 tiny squares. Okay, and this is the ones, 4 in the ones. طيب what about the tens? In problem 2 we have 10 times 4. Okay, this is problem 2. 10 times 4 gives me 40. Let's write it first. يبقى here I have 4 tenths and here I have 40. How can I represent 40? Yes, it means I have 4 in the tenths. Like you see here. يبقى 4 in the tenths. 1 tenth, 2 tenths, 3 tenths, and 4 tenths. طيب, so how many rods do I need to draw in the tenths column? Yes, 4 rods. Let's move to problem number 3. Problem number 3, here we have 4 times 100. Here 4 times 100 gives me what? Yes, gives me 400. How can I represent 400 here? Yes, I will draw 4 hundreds like this. 100, 200, 300, and 400. So, we will do the same with problem number 4. Problem number 4 بتقول لي إيه؟ بتقول لي 1000 times 4. Here 1000 times 4 gives me what? Gives me 4000. So, I will draw 4000 in the 1000 column. This is 1000, 2000, 3000, and 4000. And now I need you to identify the patterns you have seen in the drawing. شايفين الدروينج؟ Now identify the patterns you can see. We can say that the patterns we have noticed in the products in the place value chart are as follows. تعالوا نكتب الباترنز مع بعض. Let's see. Let's write here the patterns. طيب. What are my patterns? The first one here, 4 times 1 equals 4, and this is 40. This is 400 and this is 4000. تعالوا نكتب كده الباترن مع بعض. يبقى here I have 4 times 1 gives me 4. 4 times 10 gives me 40. 4 times 100 gives me 400. And 4 times 1000 gives me 4000. And this is my pattern. These answers or products are related to each other. يعني إيه؟ As each number in the place value chart is 10 times greater than the number before it. Like you see here, 4000 greater 10 times than 400, greater 10 times than 40, greater 10 times than 4. Also, as we move to the left in the chart, the number is 10 times greater than the number before it, as you take it before, right? So, do you think this is related to any of the properties we have explored today? Yes, two properties. الكلام ده related ل two properties احنا خدناهم النهارده اللي هم ايه؟ The first one, the identity property. The second one, the zero property of multiplication. This pattern will help us in multiplication, especially with finding multiples mentally and effectively. Now, let's move now to Connect part page 216. تعالوا كده let's move to Connect part. This is Connect part, page 216 in your school book. Here there is a problem about طارق who says that. طارق كان بيقول إيه؟ بيقول إن 9 times 1000 gives me 900. طيب, what would you tell طارق؟ هتقول لطارق إيه from what you have studied بالحاجات اللي أنت درستها to help him correct his mathematical thinking. I need each one of you to write the answer in your books using words. كل واحد يكتب لي الانسر في البوك بتاعه. ممكن نستخدم words أو نستخدم number أو pictures to explain your thinking. Read the question quickly and think about the answer that you will all have. And now, of course, all our answers will be similar. طبعا كلنا في الآخر الانسر بتاعتنا هتبقى نفس الانسر. وهنقول إن طارق hasn't noticed ما خدش باله خالص من ال place value وال pattern of multiplying by 10. He doesn't notice ما خدش باله that there are 3 zeros في 1000. ما خدش باله إن عندي 3 zeros في 1000 وإن كان لازم الانسر يبقى فيه برضو 3 zeros. Here in practice page 216 there are some problems similar to the ones under build. I will give you time تاخدوا وقت to solve problems number 1, 2 and 3. And when we are back, we will review the answers all together. And now, of course, you will solve these problems the same way we did before. هنحل البروبلمز دي بنفس الطريقة اللي احنا حلينا المسائل قبل كده. Here, let's move to do the practice part all together. And here's the practice sheet. Okay. Now, the practice page 216, as you see here in problem number 1, this is problem number 1. He's asking me that 100 times 5 equals what? 100 times 5 equals what? So we will multiply 5 times 1. تعالوا كده نعملها. 5 times 1 equals what? Yes, 5 times 1 equals 5, right? Then I will multiply 5 times 0. Any number times 0 gives me what? Any number times 0 gives me 0. And then I have another 0, so 5 times 0 gives me 0. So the answer is 500. Again, 100 times 5 gives me 500. We will do the same with problem 2. طيب تعالوا نشوف problem 2. Problem 2, he's asking me 1000 times 2 equals what? 1000 times 2 equals what? The same way. هعمل إيه؟ هعمل 1 times 2 gives me 2. 2 times 0 equals 0. 2 times another 0. 2 times the third 0 equals 0. So 1000 times 2 gives me 2000. Let's move now to problem number 3. Here in problem number 3, we will apply what we have understood. هنطبق بقى كل اللي احنا خدناه. What number do we multiply by 7 to get 700? يعني بسأل نفسي 7 times what gives me 700. طيب here I have 2 zeros in the number, right? أهو أنا عندي 2 zeros. So what should I do? Yes, this means I will multiply by 100. هي مش 100 يعني 1 and beside it 2 zeros. So 7 times 100 gives me 700, right? Okay, let's move now to problem number 4. Problem number 4 here is the same way. I will solve it by the same way. Here we need to know what number do I will multiply by 9 to get 9000. يعني إيه الكلام ده؟ يعني ask yourself, هي 9 times what equals 9000? طيب هي 9000 عندها كام zeros? Right? 9000 عندها 3 zeros. So 9 times what equals 1000? 9000. Yes, 1000 has 3 zeros. So I will multiply by 1000. يعني 9 times 1000 gives me 9000. Now let's move to the last problem here. It's very simple. But here is a challenge, right? As you see here, this is a challenge. Here, how can I multiply 4 times 10,000? هعملها ازاي؟ 4 times 10,000. It means that the answer will have 4 zeros. عشان عندي هنا 4 zeros. So I will put here 4 zeros. وبعدين هعمل ايه؟ Yes, I will multiply 4 times 1. 4 times 1 gives me what? 4 times 1 gives me 4. So, can you read the answer? Yes, 4 times 10,000 gives me 40,000. And this is my answer. And now, after we finish the practice part, let's summarize all what we took today. And by the end of our lesson today, we will go back to our targets to check what we have achieved. Today, we have learned, تعلمنا النهاردة identity property and the zero property of multiplication. They are very important, and how to use these properties to solve the problems. We also have learned how to identify the patterns. تعلمنا ازاي نحدد الباترنز بتاعتنا repeated when factors are multiplied by 10, 100, and 1000. And now you can check your understanding by answering more problems, and you can do this by scanning the QR code on page 213 in your school books. Thank you so much, my dear students, for watching, and see you next lesson.